We are engaging in ceremony. So I'm inviting you to pause for a moment and to get a shawl of some kind. I say often these are prayer shawl times. So I'm inviting you to pause and get your shawl. And in the act of getting your shawl, we begin the ceremony. Women who gather around the fire for healing have been wearing shawls for many generations. So I invite you to put on your prayer shawl, even if you don't know what you pray to anymore, and to just allow yourself to rock back and forth as you wrap yourself in this fabric. As always, I'm inviting you to become as present as you can become. How embodied can you be in this moment? As you wrap yourself in this shawl with this awareness that each one of us in each of our own studios, our own healing power spots, is doing the same. I invite you to feel the heat and the weight, and if you don't have a shawl, a shirt, or a blanket, or anything you've got, just to feel the heat and the weight of the fabric. And just inviting yourself to arrive and to make it physical, so where you're actually like touching your own body and saying, I am arriving, I am arriving, I am arriving. And sometimes it can be really challenging to arrive when you're dealing with mental or physical health, when the body has been a place of pain or shame. So right in this moment, in as much as you are authentically able to, I'm just inviting you to pat down your body wherever your hands feel called, but just pat down your body and to say something in your own words though, like, I am here. I am as safe as I can be in this vessel right now. And it's this acknowledgement of just being in form and touching the very real mortalness of yourself as you just invite your whole spiritual self into this physical vessel. It's already here. But this ceremonial time is this reminder that we are co-creators and we can step more fully into our body through asking. And if what we've been saying lately, that the body doesn't lie, the body keeps the score, the body knows it all, if the body has been a record of so much that has happened, can we just stop right now and acknowledge this vessel that helped us survive, navigate with creative choices? Like, you are alive right now. And sometimes this body doesn't feel like a hospitable place. Sometimes the wounds and the stories, and specifically the chemistry that you didn't necessarily design, or the allergies or the reactions, it doesn't feel like a safe place. But as a healer, as a guide, you doing your own work to arrive in this body and to say, thank you for carrying me through. I don't know how we did it, but here we are. And to just be able to work with the guests at your table to do simple things like what we're doing right now, which is just to wrap yourself in a garment and to pat your body and your heart. And the patting and the tapping, has many connections with chemistry and EFT and there are so many systems, but this affirming and asking guests and yourself to just feel and inhabit this sacred temple. Because if we are dysregulated in our work and we don't have a way to regulate ourselves, then the weights of the world may keep us from being as present as we can be. And what I want to invite you to as we inhabit our bodies is an idea that when you are working with others in healing capacity or with yourself, you're not putting yourself with a capital S on hold in order to guide others. The years when shamans and healers and guides and therapists would put their whole life on hold in order to hold space for others. We know what happened during the COVIDian era. Like, therapists were the ones in a lot of the mental health places. I got a therapist after waiting months and months and months and 2 sessions, and she's like, "It has nothing to do with you. I just have to cancel all my clients. I can't take it anymore." Like, the healers are so overwhelmed with the needs. But we as healers need to learn how to regulate our own nervous system and to not put our life on hold when we come into ceremony or into the client session. I'm asking you with all my heart, from this moment forward, do not put yourself on hold in your sessions. Do not put yourself on hold when you teach painting or writing. Do not bring a different self to work. Bring you. That doesn't mean you tell them everything that's going on with you and take airtime. It just means that you are yourself in that space, and it's not always easy to discover that self that is themselves, not being performative to pass, but actually just being as you are. And you see me doing this all the time. And I may not tell you everything that's going on, but when I'm having a hard day, I say, "I'm having a hard time right now. I feel like I'm going to cry, but I'm here and I want to be here. And because I don't put myself on hold, I want to be here." And it seems like there could be a paradox when you're in your own healing journey and you're not recovered and yet you're going to engage in healing with others. It seems like it could be inauthentic or false, but it only is if you put yourself on hold. And I want to stand for a paradigm where the healer, guide, leader, shaman isn't sacrificing themselves for the client-guest relationship. It isn't working. And you don't need to do that. But you do need ritual, because if you're about to go into a session or a circle and you feel freaked out, you need to do things like, let me put on my shawl. I remember doing that with a group of women. Let me pat my body for a couple minutes before I go into the session or the circle. I remember we did that. Let me feel the relationship with my community and with intentional creativity, with my lineage. Let me do that and affirm myself. Because you're not just co-regulating alone. We are actually here in the quantum. That is why we practice feeling each other through the particles and waves as something very real. And I have said to you that my relationship with you, where you are, and me where I am, is one of the biggest. It's my primary relationship. My relationship with you is literally my primary relationship and my primary responsibility. In addition to myself included in that, but it's you. And so I practice feeling you. And so when you go into your circles and spaces and therapy sessions, you're also practicing not feeling alone. You might think of me or one of our other leaders or healers or teachers. You might think of this moment right now. You might remember that in this moment you are not actually alone, and stop telling yourself that you are. Include yourself. Stop withholding and feel the connection of this group. Let any resistance to being here begin to soften and dissolve. Breathe. And as you breathe, if you breathe a little longer on the out breath, you regulate and connect with the vagus nerve. So breathing in a longer out breath. And the more you breathe, just noticing the fullness of your belly. Are you sucking in your belly? Stop holding your stomach in and soften your belly and keep breathing. Right in this moment, I just invite you to feel as safe as you can feel. Is there anything from keeping you from being as safe as you can feel? And like Elder Lauren taught us, you can just also look around and just feel like nobody's behind me. Door may be locked, no one's coming. I'm okay right now. I'm as okay as I can be, therefore I can rest into this moment. Can you rest into this moment? And we want to create cycles of rest for each other. We are in a healing retreat right now, and I'm inviting you to rest. If you can discover the tools to help yourself rest, you will be able to guide others to rest. And if there's anything in the entire world that is needed by any and every single human being, it's to find a place of rest even when the world around them is unrest. We know the impacts of stress and adrenal fatigue and lymphatic drain. I mean, we know all the names for the way that the body demonstrates over many years anxiety, triggering points, trauma responses. But what we're doing right now, we are not freezing, we are not fighting, we are not fawning, we are not fleeing. We are finding. We are finding a breath, finding someone else's eyes, finding a shawl, finding a hand movement that feels right to your body. As long as, if you Google stress response, you're going to find images and graphics made by hundreds of companies that list the F words. But what I find absolutely striking is that they don't provide that there's even another option. Like you're just going to go into fight or freeze, or you're not, you don't have any other choices here, people. These are your stress responses. As a visual culture, if we see these are stress responses and you show it to someone over and over and over, they don't even program the possibility that there's something else that they could do. And I'm telling you, you have the power to find a solution for yourself and offer that to others. And if there's a role that I've had in my life with our community is to be with you while you find your own solution. I don't fix. You don't need fixing, but you do come to find a way to be with what it is that you're navigating. We are no longer putting ourselves on hold even to teach, even to support. We cannot afford to not be ourselves for an hour or a day or 10 years of a therapy career. But discovering who to show up as in those spaces when you've been passing because your own life is coming apart. We're not going to pass anymore. But we do need to find a presence, a way to show up in the space that's authentic to you, that's not fake. It's harmful to you. And I would also say to the guests that are at your table, if they're sitting with someone who is not being themselves because they have to put themselves in a box in order to show up, the transformation is not what it could be. And what I also find is that when I'm not being myself in a session with someone, I end up giving too much because I'm overcompensating for my lack of authenticity. I give too much because I want to provide value. And strangely, it has a bizarre effect when we end up giving too much in those spaces because we're compensating, often turns on us. You cannot give too much. Your presence is enough. The healer archetype that we're working with for each one of you, which is your own, is the energy frequency that you can step into archetypally. So before you go into a circle, a session, you kind of put that on. You put on this presence. There's a book called The Mists of Avalon, and when the priestesses in there would enter like the priestess archetypal energy, they would call it putting on the glamour. It must be an early meaning for what glamour is, but like they would put on this, they call it the glamour, so they would actually turn on priestess archetype. And so when you are in a shit show in your own life and you got to go be with people and you put yourself on hold, you're going to drain yourself and you're going to empty your cup. But what you can do instead is regulate, find a solution, find a creative process that works for you. You can give yourself 15 minutes between clients, 5 minutes or 4.5 minutes between clients. No more of that. And then you request of yourself your healer archetype. And from a very somatic place, you could even imagine putting on and being with not just the frequency, but actually the colors. And it's not like I'm putting this on like a mask. It's like I'm bringing this around me like a field condition. And I could move some of these flowers around because I'm using my imagination that we've been developing with the exotic inner wilderness. I could come in and I'm feeling her presence, and I could put those flowers into my hair. I could imagine my whole body covered in the flowers as like a cosmic tattoo, right? I'm bringing it in my imagination, and in this very specific way, I am choosing my healer archetype for me and also for those that I'm being with. Today, we're working with how this healer archetype gets embodied and how you're going to bring it into your book in some way. Because this idea of sort of amplifying and upgrading the frequency of the healer archetype that you embody, it is a deep personal practice. And I'm not really even inviting you to teach this part to others because this is sort of higher level to learn this. But your capacity to calibrate a frequency around yourself that allows you to be yourself without compromise will allow you to continue your work. And we need healers who are not depleted and exhausted, who have not been passing and covering, who do not deplete themselves between year after year without resting, who are not only leaving 5 minutes between client sessions, and I know why that works and why you do it, you could, but like really, so anyone right now who's seeing clients, I'm encouraging you to make a radical action and go add 15 minutes in between clients from now on. And whatever that is for you inside of your life. You know that every single day I take time for myself. You know that every single day that is my practice to have cafe and to do creative work. That is the way that I care for myself. Even though when I wake up and I know I'm going to be with you, I literally want to run to you. Like I just can't wait. And I actually want to start creating content right away, and I want to write you letters and tell you things and take videos for you. Sometimes you see posts from me early on the day of, because I'm literally running to you. And today I was like, just be with yourself. They don't need you to run to them and make sure everything is perfect. And so I'm modeling and asking you to do the same. I need you to care for yourself. I one time got to dance with Dr. Clarissa Pinkola Estes, who wrote Women Who Run with the Wolves. We were dancing to a song that the words were, I need you to survive. I could see her saying those words to me. And I'm saying to you, to each of you, I need you to survive. And in order for you to do that, you must care for yourself. It's not a cliche. It's not privileged self-care. You should, you deserve. It's not that. It's something much deeper, which is how you're designed as a human being, as a healing, self-renewing temple, to care for yourself. The number of people who are breaking down around us, the highest level healers that I know who are dying of a myriad of diseases, including mental health. Those who have been carrying the torch of wellness for a long time are often ending up extremely unwell. I don't want that to happen to me, and I don't want that to happen to you. But intentional creativity is a way that you can care for yourself so that you can care for others from your overflow. Sometimes when I come here, I think in order for you to love me, I have to be dramatic and gorgeous and fantastic and funny. And today I just say to you, you don't want to be that all the time. I'm softly, quietly requesting that you care for yourself and to allow me and the other people who guide you to not have to be superheroes all the time. If I'm less shiny in a video or a class, I'll sometimes get emails from people like, oh, are you feeling okay? You look tired. I'm like, did you see the one from 3 days ago where I don't look so tired, bitch? Like, you know, like as soon as people see me softening or quieting down, like people start reaching out and saying these things to me, and I get really reactive because I'm like, do I have to be on all the time for you to know that I'm okay? I'm not talking about you reaching out because you're worried about me. I'm not talking about that. But there's like this judgment in the culture. It's often called she's letting herself go, right? Or wow, you know, like there's a way that we're judging. And I'm asking you to be generous with your guides, with your teachers, with your healers, with your priestesses, with your shamans, that we are in a huge experience right now, feeling a lot of things going on in the world. And you are also feeling that in your own way. I'm asking you to be generous with yourself and with those of us who are brave enough right now to get in front of the camera or get in front of the circle or whatever it is. And so as we go to our canvas today in ceremony, the first frequency that we're bringing is of care and of self-care, and I will demonstrate for you. But if I could make this request literally from this moment forward, that you caring for yourself is no longer optional, but built into your life. We all need this care. It doesn't take anything away from anyone when you do this, even though your kids or your lover may act like they need you all the time. You must do this for you. So let's allow ourselves to take a brief time of just breathing, resting, and integrating. Maybe make a few journal notes, and then we're going to come back. And I invite you to get a color mixed up, and it's just a color for a self-care color. And I don't want to call it self-care. That's so cliche. I don't know what it is. I don't have a better term right now, but you know what I'm talking about. This restful nature, this retreat nature. A color of retreat and rest. I'm going to demonstrate, and then I'm inviting you to do it yourself, but just go ahead and watch what I'm going to do. So we're going to accomplish two things in this. One is we're going to add an additional color throughout the whole painting, and that's the technique part. And then the other part is once you get the hang of the technique, then you're practicing the feeling of nurturing and of breathing and of resting and feeling this commitment. You can't be a healed healer if you do not rest. I mean, you cannot be well enough to serve your community if you're not caring also for yourself. So, today is that day. So, my healing color is pink. And of course I'm like, oh no, what's going to happen in the painting if I bring pink? But that's my healing color, so I'm just trusting it. And I have some yellow. So I have some white in the middle and some red on one side and yellow on the other side. And I'm going to be pulling from these. And so what I'm going to be doing is influencing the whole painting with smaller versions of particle and wave into existing shapes. And so I'm leaving a glow around whatever I'm going on top of. So these are not necessarily new lines. They're inside of what you already have. So even like here, if I'm going to come inside of what's already there. And you're going to want to kiss at least 5 places on the painting with this healing energy and this healing color. And in the most perfect world, you're not thinking, once you sort of set your sights on what you're doing, you're not having to think too much about what you're doing. You're just moving your brush as you feel this permission to rest. And there is a way to feel restful while being active by just moving the brush. But when my intention is really clear, there's almost no effort because I'm in a state of flow. So that's part of what happens when you can be truly rested. You can also move into a state of flow. We're going to come in a little bit closer onto the canvas with the camera. We're going to come in just a little bit closer. So I'm going to show you some other techniques with a different brush over here. Like a bigger brush. And I'm switching up my color a little bit, but I still have the original self-care color. And I'm moving inside of the shapes that I already generated. And I'm bringing life to them. I don't know if you can hear the brush, the sound that it's making. It's like, there's a pressure there. And you're not using a wet brush. The brush has not been wet with water. It's dry, and you're pressing pretty hard. And you can expand beyond what you created before and try not to control it too much. Notice I'm coming over these strokes. Do not dominate if at all possible. And breathe and stroke. And I'm suggesting that this healing color all throughout the painting in different areas. And you can do it any way you want. You can do dots, you can do swishes, but I really would love for you to get this technique clearer, which is how you use the dry brush to drag and create a sense of light. And anywhere you want, any way you want. And we're going to do about 8 whole minutes right now of self-care and breath as we stroke with this healing color. Okay? And then we'll move on to what's next. starting to wrap up what you've been working with. Come in really close to this spot right here. I'm just going to come in really close right here. I want to show you how when you have the right brush, right? This is like a big filbert and it's rounded. It's probably not a filbert. I can't remember what the name of it is. Anyway, it's big and round. You get the idea. Okay, so when you're working with the right brush and it's the right amount of dry, you don't have to paint with a capital P. You're just using the shape and the turgor, like the tension of the brush to make the shapes. So if you look at the whole painting, which didn't have any of this pinky yellow color, didn't start that way. And just notice it's all been integrated now, even with just less than, for me anyway, less than 15 minutes. This additional color palette has come in, and I know in my body and have registered in my body, this layer is a demonstration of my self-care and my self-rest. And so I'm gonna ask you to do something kind of outrageous right now. Surprise, you know how it is around here. So many of the fairy tales and myths that we've been raised with associate the word sleep with a kind of spell or a kind of unconsciousness. Whether that's a sleeping beauty and a poison apple, or a deep sleep was put over them, or Adam going to sleep and Eve coming out, there's this sleeping thing. And one of the big issues of our health today is the quality of our sleep. And it's really hard for people to sleep who don't take rest during the day to also rest. In between sessions, you can ask anyone who works with me, even if I have 5 minutes, I'm going to go lay down. Flat, not just stop, but actually lay down. And I'd say to myself, I'm renewing myself in that moment. And sometimes I set an alarm and I do fall asleep for a couple minutes. I really give and then I really rest. So we have these stories about sleep, and we also have a whole bunch of stories about the dream. We also use the word sleep in relationship to people are asleep. I wish people would wake up. So we also use it as a metaphor for people who are not paying attention, and then ultimately end up in versions of spiritual bypassing of oh yeah, that's not really happening. That's not what that is. And it's just, there's a language around sleeping and dreaming that has been so shaped by the culture and language. And yet if we look at indigenous cultures and we go further back, we find very different meanings for sleep and dream than what we're living into at this point. And so I am asking you to include something in the story that you're writing that matters to me as your guide. And I like to joke that it matters so much, even to the God of the Old Testament, that a whole day, a seventh day, the Sabbath, is dedicated to rest. And I would joke when I was in those circles, if we don't actually take that day to rest, we're not going to be able to not do the other stuff. We're not going to be able to not hurt each other. We're not going to be able to do all the other commandments because we're going to be so friggin' tired that we're not going to be able to be good people. So literally, even in that largely seeming patriarchal story, even though the creator Elohim is masculine and feminine, there was this whole day, a seventh of a week, was for resting. So you start the night before and you go through the next day to sundown. That's what we've done in these last 2 retreats. You see me doing this a lot because I actually kept the Sabbath for many, many years, and it taught me how to rest even when I don't have a 24-hour cycle. So I'm asking you to consider rest and sleeping and dreaming as a sacred and important part of being a human being, and to sort of rescue it from the idea of the unconsciousness or the unconscious sleep, and somehow weave it into some part of your story. If we do not learn how to sleep from our family, if we had abuse as a child and we had an alertness, if we had all these things, it plays out in our sleep. And you will go crazy in a couple days without sleep. I mean, you have to sleep. And so, but we can't just wait to sleep. We have to rest throughout the day. I literally am inviting you to rest for 5 to 10 minute cycles throughout your day. And I want to say that you do have time. You have to look for these spaces. You're in the shower, you're rushing to the next thing. It's 30 seconds of just feeling the water and giving thanks for water. You're standing in line at the bank, you're like, oh, I gotta go. And instead you recognize you're gonna be there for 5 minutes, and you literally just rest and maybe even pray for the people in this space, in this restful place. So you start to punctuate your time with the rest. It will save your life. It will help you regulate your nervous system. It will help you reduce stress. You'll have less cortisol. I mean, there's all the reasons. But what I'm asking you to see is that your healer archetype, in order to be a healed healer, needs more rest, needs more quality rest, needs more intentional resting. And some forms of intentional creativity are resting and some parts are not. As soon as you try to make a painting good, that's not resting. As soon as you try to edit your writing after you free flowed, that isn't resting energy. It's something else. It's creative juices, but I'm talking about creative resting, which allows for there to be a flow state. It's hard to get into flow state if you're overly hypervigilant. So resting allows for a relaxing of the hypervigilant parts of you. And so could you go to your story, the one that you've already been working on now, and whether it's a teaching, if it's a teaching story, can you include rest and sleep and dream in there in some way? If it's a fictional story, can you include the significance of resting, sleeping, dreaming in a certain way? If animals do it, and if the sun makes its rotation, and if plants go to sleep in the dark, why wouldn't you, and why wouldn't that be an important part of your teaching? Years and years of a hypervigilance has a huge toll. And I remember feeling, because my family was so wildly unstable and there was so much alcoholism and drug abuse and just crazy, right? And there was all the love too. So it's I have that mix. A lot of people have one or the other, but I have all the love. And my family did not treat me like a person. They didn't create shame for me, but they were totally unstable. So as a little person, I became hyper vigilant, and I would actually go and clean up the kitchen in the middle of the night, or I would care for people. I carry that tradition now as a worrier instead of a warrior. I worry. It's a tradition in my family to worry, right? But there's a time when I have to stop worrying externally and allow myself to rest. So I'm asking you to find a way that's in integrity with you to include the need for rest in your story, in your teaching. If you're going to guide others, how will you include this? This is not just for the privileged set who have time. This is for you. What does that writing sound like if there's a character? Maybe the healer is prescribing it for someone. Maybe an entire village decides to take a day off. Maybe, right? Brief story, my cousin Bridget, my mom and I introduced the Sabbath to her when her son Ezekiel was I think it was 5 or 6 years old. And so we said, okay, this is how we do it. Start this night. We take this whole day. There's no keys. There's no movies. There's no drinking. There's no this. There's could be sex. There could be walks in the nature. We could do this and do this. Sex with her partner. And she did this whole thing, and she made these spaces, and Ezekiel was there, and he her and her partner would go off, and Ezekiel would go off with us, and then we'd do some gardening and some resting, and we just had this whole day because his parents worked so hard. It was such an uncommon day. It was so beautiful, where all the time expanded and all these needs got met that weren't being met. And then a couple days later, when the household was just pressurized, because they were on a farm and they were workers and they had a school, and Ezekiel just yelled out, "Why can't we have a Sabbath?" Like this little kid, just like he sees what's going on and he's asking for rest. And so we need to rest and to teach about resting. And I teach it to you all the time. I don't call it out all the time. We call it cafe. I'm calling it out today because I need you to survive. So we're going to have a 10-minute writing cycle right now. And I know I'm tasking you with something that wasn't a part of your story. And I'm doing it on purpose for an exercise to ask you to value your rest. I want you to sleep better. I want you to rest more throughout your day. And so I'm asking you to include it in your story. And I'm telling you that if I did not do this, I would not be standing here today. My capacity to rest and care for myself is the only reason I can do all the things that you see me doing, which seem impossible to you. And I'm still not a workaholic. So resting is a gift I'm giving you today to let you know how much it actually matters to me and to you. So we'll just go into a cozy little spot, maybe pick up your computer or your journal, find the coziest little power spot you can find. Breathe and allow the pen to flow. And the energy that we just built and the energy from this morning is going to show you a way to write about resting and dreaming that you haven't discovered before. So also anticipate something's coming through that hasn't come through before. Anticipate and rest and write. And we'll come back and we'll do the next layer.